first and foremost, congratulations. This movie is amazing.
Thank you.
Definitely a need in Hollywood right now. So what drew you to basically taking on the role and joining this film?
I really, in speaking to Navot, who wrote and directed it, I just loved he had a very clear vision for this movie from the very start. And we started talking about, working together on it. And it was interesting because, he started telling me who, the other actors that he was getting. And I was like, seems like an extraordinary group of women. And Madeline we talked about this because she was sort of being formed as we were beginning this process. And one of the things that I love about this character is that she, it felt to me like she was the one who had to represent in a lot of ways the love for books and the love for literature and history and the library. And that perhaps she had actually kind of sworn off of violence for a little while. And it's not until a child is in the library again, which it's been in some time, and is in danger, that she's willing to, fight to the end. And so that was a fun, different character than I've ever played before. And so that appealed to me as well.
And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, that Madeline is very much a very calming sense of the group.
Yeah.
There's just such an ease to her that comes across so beautifully in your performance. And you mentioned briefly that you were forming the character as kind of the film was being developed. Can you talk a little bit more about, how you guys developed that sense of calm and why it was important for her to be,
Yeah. I think it was, what was nice was Novot had laid out in the script a really wonderful sort of groundwork for it, and but wanted, was welcoming ideas. And a lot of it was even sort of the notion of like giving a book that was also to read. Like she can't just go with these books filled with weapons. She also needs to actually read something. And so we started, talking about that idea, and that was sort of where the Agatha Christie thing emerged from. And I think because there's a relatively limited amount of screen time for the librarians, but you need to get their personalities. It just became about sort of those moments of very simple discoveries, like when when Karen's character Sam comes into the library initially, Madeline, the worst thing is to be interrupted while you're reading, so she needs to finish her sentence, just those kind of moments. And then Navot cinematically sort of built that in and supported that moment that was happening, sort of by allowing that sort of sense of like, okay, the library is quiet and this is how we do it here. And then Sam being able to then, Karen's character being able to remember what it was like when she was in the library as a kid. And even the fact that, most likely Sam played with Tommy Tomahawk and as a kid, and that's maybe why she took Tommy Tomahawk, and Madeline finally finds it again, and sort of like just laying in those kind of things so that we understand that when Chloe's character comes in, when there's a new child there, that is sort of Madeline's calling, is to be there and protect the children.
And I had to bring up the tomahawk scene. How much did you train for that? Because it was beautifully done. And you would think you've had years with a tomahawk.
Thank you. It was tough, I will say, because I've done a lot. I'm a physical person, but in terms of like, oh, let's now do a fight sequence with a tomahawk in one hand, it was definitely terrifying, but exciting. And ultimately we pulled it off, and with very little, it's almost all, if not all, me. But basically, the stunt coordinators are incredible. Laurent and Sebastian had done Lucy amongst many other great movies, but so they were super generous, helpful, skilled, and encouraging. And so I had about a week and a half of training every day for that sequence. So we came in and did it pretty quickly. But yeah, it was a blast. I mean, 2 days into rehearsing for that, I literally couldn't lift my right arm. Thankfully, we did a lot of stuff to get it back, because I was like, oh no, I don't want to tell them because I need to do the stunt. And then it did come back. They were like, oh no, don't worry, that's totally par for the course. I was like, oh, okay, good. So yeah.
And I think also one of the best parts about this film, in my opinion, is the fact that, roles for basically women in Hollywood over the age of 30 are far and few between. It's
Right.
very stagnant in, you know, you're either a mother or grandmother.
Right.
And in this, not only do you have, you know, one woman over the age of 30, but you have multiple, and you're all in, excuse me the language, but badass roles, and you're all so completely different. How did that feel for you to come together with all of these ladies and have each one be distinctly different?
Well, that's what the beauty of it is, right? Is that it was incredible, and it really did produce an amazing energy on set. All of these women individually are very strong women who have had long careers and are truly collaborative, and we're all super excited to be there. And but you know, we know our stuff. So it was like, it was just a really great playing field to start on right away. I also just really appreciate that none of the roles are about age. You know, I think that that's the other thing, is that, you know, very few male roles are age oriented. So you're very rarely are you like knowing how old the guy is. And yet for some reason, like you said, in a lot of female roles, it's sort of like either you're defined by the role you play as a mother or a grandmother or a whatever, stepmother, or you are sort of like acknowledged as there's a line about your age or something, you know? And so I was so appreciative that just in life, like in life, this is, you know, we're these people have had a history, which I love, and yet they are in their prime. So yeah, so it was a really, it was very liberating and really fun. And I said to Navot from the very beginning, he had a really strong intuition about who he cast, because we just felt like family immediately.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to mention the costumes, because it was such a tiny detail, but between, you know, Angela Bassett with and Michelle and you each had a distinct color that I think represented each of your characters very well. Was that something that the costume department came to you guys to discuss about, or, you know, what kind of was the influence behind each of your, you know, specifically Madeline's color of pink?
Totally. Our costume designer is brilliant. So she's just amazing anyway. But in terms of Madeline, for sure, I know she had different sort of color palette she was thinking. And yes, one is something cohesive because we have all been living together for so long, the three of us. But I brought in sort of, I had an idea. There was a Brigitte Bardot picture from the 60s where she had a little bit of the height here, and she did have a little bow, because I wanted Madeline definitely is, you know, she seems to be the one who's sort of the lover of books and representative of that in the library. And so it wasn't about a tie as much as something that was deeply feminine, but also had a softness, but also a propriety to it. And so that picture became our influence, and then she ran with it. But yeah, it was definitely important to me that we, you know, and I think those characters needed to be iconic in terms of their look. And so yeah, it was really fun to kind of build the looks, especially because we all only had one costume, really.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were in that, you didn't really change at all, which was, like I said, and my kind of, again, opinion is that with Madeline's pink, you guys took pink, which is a very feminine color, and kind of brought more power to it.
Yeah.
Which, you know, in this very badass role.
Totally. Yeah, it was important to me with her that we have that juxtaposition of like this sort of beautiful softness, quintessential femininity. And then it doesn't have to be in spite of that, but in addition to that, she has this fire, you know. And I think most often it's the most demure people who you know, have a lot underneath the surface, that when it comes out, it's pretty strong.
And then in the sense of back to the, you know, Madeline's calmness and stuff that you see majority of the film, and then when she does kind of have her action sequence, how was that for you as an actor to go from playing very serene, very calm, and then just making that switch to the, you know, I'm about to destroy these people?
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I think, again, because she is, she's very present. So I think in the moment that she realizes that Chloe's character is in danger, she, you know, she has been tasked with watching out for this young woman's life. And I think that what she, if anything, she will try to secure the fact that she has a future. So I don't even think, I think it's an absolutely instinctual response. And interestingly enough, she stays very present, you know, in that same way of when you're reading a book. I think that she has a context, and she has a strength, and she has a backbone, and that is really her entire journey. So at some points it seems softer, and at some points it seems um, more action packed, but I think it comes from the same place.
And then for my final question, there's a lot of inspirations, at least I noticed in this film, to say, you know, Kill Bill and John Wick and all that
Right.
stuff. Did you take any inspiration from past 80s or 90s film to help bring Madeline to life or help you approach this film?
You know, I think I love all the homages that he pays to great filmmakers who have preceded this. But no, this was really just about he had a very clear vision of what he wanted, and and once I clicked into who Madeline was, it was really just about playing her authentically. Because I think that was the other thing, is he hired actresses who were always going to keep things grounded. And I think that that was really, that's just very important for this movie, because it is a heightened film and it doesn't really exist in reality. So because of that, you know, the performance needed to be grounded in humanity so that the rest of it can go sort of wild.